one of the most important parts of the SALSA policy work is actually integrating the SALSA findings that came out of fieldwork and out of the participatory processes with all the regional COPs, the communities of practice, the policymakers, the farmers' organizations throughout the 5 previous work packages, and to integrate those in a synthetic process, which we decided would be the SWOTs. The SWOT, the strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and strength framework are widely used in a European context for the creation of rural development programs. And one of the innovations of the SALSA policy work is that we're tailoring this to a small farmer's context. And in doing so, we hope that these would contribute to the development of rural development programs in the next programming period. And in this sense, I think SALSA is perfectly timed to feed into these processes, because the last year of the project is exactly in the evaluation period and in the design period of the next CAP programming period, but for also other European programs. And while this is very much focused and sort of draws on the European policy framework, we've developed a separate process for our African partners in Ghana, Cape Verde, Kenya, but also the other 2 regions in Tunisia and Malawi. We're still using the SWOT, but we will be using that process also in order for African partners to offer recommendations to the European partners in terms of small farmer tools, policies, or mechanisms they've identified in their countries, which might be used as cross-learnings in a European context. And the reason why we emphasize this is because a lot of the African countries have had predominantly small farmer-based agricultural systems for 30 years or more. They've also had a much longer tradition of programs for small farmers and a lot more interventions. They've tried out more along the years than maybe a lot of the European countries have. And I think there are many learnings that could be taken out of their experience, for example, on microcredits or on digital tools for small farmers. There's a lot more innovation in an African context for these things, and we'd like to nurture that and create a structural process to be able to connect to the 2 very different political and macro-regional contexts. Because we'll be using each of the 4 macro-regional workshops in Northern, Southern, Eastern Europe, but also the one in Africa, to validate whatever SALSA finding-based conclusions, but also what other literature-based conclusions we've reached about the necessary interventions for small farmers. And we'd like to, and we've already started bringing in policymakers in order to validate and enrich that, to participate in our workshops and to be active contributors to our findings, rather than just simple observants or receivers of information. And for the EU-Africa part of the work, for example, we'd hope for African partners to validate these good practices from Africa, and that we would feed them into the EU-Africa high-level policy dialogue on research and innovation. And I don't think there have been many projects that have done this so far, to create such a structural process for feeding into the EU-Africa agenda.